Hey, how's it going, everybody? So, I just have to say, I was watching this guy. So, I engage with the red pill community pretty often. Where do I fall in terms of like red pill, blue pill, purple pill, black pill, whatever you want to? I don't know. I really don't know. I think a lot of information from red pill is pretty interesting, is pretty helpful. But do I like subscribe to any of that? I never really do subscribe to a particular thing. Even politics, I would consider myself a moderate. I think there's both sides you can kind of glean from. But I wouldn't say I subscribe to like fully to many things, and I personally think that's a healthy way to go about doing things, but I could be wrong. But I want to say about I was reading this dude, his mediocre tutorial and reviews. And this brother was talking about how some women will, and he was referring to this other lady, I forget her name, what, Shanique Nicole, something like that. And she was talking about how your first role model, and I think this is based off psychology, is that your first role model will be your parents. And if you're in a single parent household, which in the black community is most likely a mother, and if you check out Rat Utopia, or I think it's called Rat Utopia, you learn about the problems of overpopulation, and but add that in conjunction with low education, very little education, overpopulation, and poverty, and you get a stew of a lot of bad things. You get children raising children, essentially, because the mothers and the fathers they age out. There's just like a high rate of a high like birth rate, and I think that tapers off because again they become babies raising babies, so they don't really know how to properly be children. But it made me think, because he referred to these women having a defensive mindset and what I will even like to call a gynocentric worldview, or maybe a matriarchal worldview, where it's like they don't really. There's this defensive stance of women and men, where it's like don't trust men because they have negative intentions. And so with that, it makes sense that given this perspective, they will try to compensate. Like, some of these single mothers will try to compensate, especially if these men are boys. And I think it trails off a lot of other things, and even in Rat Utopia, they had a bunch of interesting outcomes for these rats. They had rats who are so just inundated in sexual gratification, I guess, or a high birth rate, that some of them, now prior in the beginning stages, they would do their courting thing and then the rats would leave. Now when it became overpopulated, the female rats would leave, and the male rats will follow them into the place where their breeding space. I mean, not their breeding space, but their living space. They will follow them there, and they will essentially harass them. And it reminds me of dolphins, because dolphins, for some reason, they're very I don't know. Let's just say they're like the worst type of jock person you could experience or be around. Dolphins will harass, and they will harass a female dolphin. But it just made me think about but dolphins, I don't know, that just might be genetic with them, just natural. But in a impoverished environment with little education and things of that nature, just a bad stew of a bad community, and it's not inherently black or inherently this race or that race. It just happens to be a race with these factors. they just have like a lot of negative perspectives. Like, they don't trust men. You have to be both genders if you're a single parent, and it makes sense. Men have to be, in my opinion, men have to be led by men. And if you're a single parent, you do what you can. And men tend to be disagreeable, and that's just more so like not really understanding, not being very understanding, being argumentative, holding too hard on your opinion and not being considerate of others. That's something that's a bit more of a masculine perspective. Maybe projecting your voice a bit more. That's just that last one's a bit of a guess, but more so it's just not being a team player essentially. And don't get me wrong, there's sometimes where you have to put your foot down. There's times where you have to really say, hey, I'm going to do this, and I'm not going to sway from my opinion. But also, have some balance. Sometimes it's okay to be a team player. Sometimes it's okay to consider somebody else's opinion. And this is why, you talk to a therapist, they'll tell you, okay, if you're too disagreeable, maybe be more agreeable. Learn to be a bit more agreeable. Listen to people. If you're too agreeable, which is you become a pushover. You become a person whom people will take advantage of, and you will get resentful because, this also reminds me of another study with rats, is that there was a smaller rat and there was this bigger rat. And this bigger rat eventually learned, and this is in terms of play. I learned from Jordan Peterson, but if the bigger rat won too many times, the little rat would stop playing with the bigger rat. So the bigger rat learned to just take an L sometimes. And that would encourage the little rat to continue to play with him more. And that's essentially this also lightly reminds me of me and my siblings, where it's like sometimes if you're too disagreeable. Now one of my siblings was very disagreeable, very hard-headed, tough-minded, pretty stubborn. But one thing he did learn, and especially I was more agreeable. If you didn't already know, I was a bit more agreeable, and I wasn't like, I was just like on the softer side. And there's plenty aspects to myself now that's still on the softer side. But there was times where he would, sometimes he'd be a bit too rough, and sometimes he would just ease up, and that would encourage me to play more. If he was just like just play fighting, sometimes he was just man, you hit me too hard, but yeah, and sometimes, and that's just my point, it's just like sometimes you need to learn, people need to learn to just ease up sometimes. Sometimes you don't have to always be tough, and that's not to say that you can't find people in your community to feed those urges. I think you can. I think it's very possible to find some people who will be that source of disagreeableness, that disagreeable community that you need. But people tend to, it's almost like opposites attract, but it's almost like sometimes you need the other end. Some people like the other end. Some people really enjoy the other end to the point where it's almost attractive because it's something that they are looking for. It's something that they're wanting. A very disagreeable person. And I think that bleeds into different aspects of society, like mating, and some people will even go as far as say is evolution, whereas some qualities are more fitting as a person who's disagreeable, because that might be that push you need. You might have to get very tough-minded for them, for things to happen. There's a guy I knew, and he was very, very tough-minded. He was like, well, my anger had got things taken care of. Sometimes I had to get things taken care of, and I had to snap off on them, or I had to not so much snap off on them, but sometimes that assertion that comes with anger, it gets the job done. For instance, at a public confession of Kanye, he said he used to yell a lot at people, and that they used to take care of things. Sometimes that would be what he needed to get things taken care of, and I think that's important. So going back to with the video of mediocre tutorial and reviews, he spoke about how women needed to be more. He didn't speak about it, but he was referring to another YouTuber who spoke about how in a Pirish society, women just learn from their older women to be tough-minded. And there's an aspect of, like I said before, there's aspects of being disagreeable that's very helpful in the world. But if you consider in terms of the genders and the traditional, what is done traditionally is that most men, as far as I know, they tend to be a bit more disagreeable than women. Now mind you, like for instance, if we accounted in Switzerland, I think people always like to use Switzerland for a good control group, almost to show, like, you know, if you living in a somewhat egalitarian society where everybody's pretty much equal across the board, they will naturally gravitate to their thing. So in Switzerland, the women gravitated more to nursing roles, and the men gravitated to more, I think, engineering or more just practical, like your hands-on things. And America's pretty unique, you know, in this regard, because it just has so many different types of people, different mindsets, different perspectives, and that's a whole different can of worms to open up. But I do find it pretty interesting in this perspective that, like, being disagreeable helps you in other parts of the world. It helps you in terms of business. It helps you in terms of relationships sometimes, but other times it doesn't help. It does not help. It might not even help you with, like, relationships. You know, if you're being too assertive, too disagreeable. Just like I said, and I'll use in a sense of an analogy, when those rats were essentially playing around, like they are being taught, in a sense, social dynamics. So if you just are super disagreeable, you become unlikable. You know, it's good being disagreeable is potentially good in a business setting, because you need to make hard decisions, and decisions that's not always kind or nice. But sometimes being too disagreeable with your friends or your homeboys might be like, yo, you just too stubborn. We just can't talk to you. You're like, oh, this is how we're doing it. We're doing like this, you know, and that's it. And it's like, no, you're in a group. You know, you're not the only person with an opinion. And people have to sometimes learn that, you know, you can't be too disagreeable. Sometimes it's okay to have an opinion, and sometimes it's okay to compromise. So I found that what he was talking about, this MTR, the person, is this YouTuber, was good at sharing, is like, you need to have a balance, you know. Now, I can't say I'm theorizing, honestly. I'm theorizing. But I think it just makes the most sense of just having a balance. You can't just be, okay, I'm a CEO and this works for me, so let me just be a CEO at the work at dating. It's like, it's not gonna work. That's not gonna work. Like, you don't have an employee, you have a relationship, you know. And I get some people use that as an analogy, but it's like, it's still not an analogy. But it all depends on, like, the context you're speaking at it from. Like, for instance, traditional, like, they have a higher onus on men to provide and do all these other things, and with women, they have a higher onus for them to follow the man's lead. And I kind of wonder what it means in terms of, like, in Switzerland, what's their dating dynamics. And with today, it's starting to, it claims it wants to be more egalitarian, but I don't think so. It's like it's almost like both sides want to be the leader, and that's tough. I just, there can't be two leaders, you know. And even if it's the case of, like, a technicality of, like, leading and following, where the roles exchange sometimes, and that has to do with expectations, your expectations. Sometimes you will lead in certain areas, and in other areas you might do some following, but it depends on your initial expectations, I think, you know, because if you don't have initial expectations, I don't think such a relationship will last. Because if you say, okay, I want to be the leader, and then later on you learn that this person isn't as agreeable as you thought they were, they just kind of unravel, and those first impressions become kind of loosen, and that person becomes a different person. Now they became less of a formal person. Their formal persona has kind of dwindled, and their informal persona has appeared. So it's almost like their true self. And the thing is, sometimes, what's really your true self? Sometimes you can say both aspects of yourself are indeed legitimate. But that's besides the point. If there's any point I could have, is just like maintain a balance, and know your expectations, know what you want, know what you're looking for, and see what comes with that. Because if you're a disagreeable person, like a disagreeable male, and you want to be with a agreeable woman, like a very agreeable woman, and she is looking for that, then look for that and be with this person. One of the things I always want to tell people is just hang out with them. I'm iffy on that because you never know what that would mean, but I say hang out with them because you'll see who they are as you hang out with them. And if you don't have that pressure, they will be a bit more loose to get to know you. In my opinion, I've hung out with a bunch of people and I just tried to socially engage with them, and you learn the stuff they just bring it up, they just talk. And if you have a listening ear, they'll tell you. Because ironically, there's not a lot of people who are willing to listen. So I encourage you to just get to know people. It's a great way to get to know people and have them open up, and you actually won't have to try to peer in and see what kind of person are they. Are they this or are they that? It's really good to just tell people. Another thing I do want to say is learn to just be yourself. It's good. Like, I think that's something I also want to say. Try to be yourself. That's something I'm learning to do myself. But if you don't learn to be yourself, you will conform and be who other people want you to be. And when you be that, it's almost like I say, with a balance. If you aren't yourself, you're just conforming to other people, you won't really know who you are and what you want to do and who you want to be and stuff like that. So I just encourage you to do that and know what you want. Know what you really want. Now, also be realistic, because we are human. We all grow. We all get older. It's okay to want a pretty girl, or a pretty dude, or a dude with attractive, in a attractive equivalent. But be realistic, and see yourself and see, okay, for the type of person who I am, who can I get? For me, I had to be a bit more humble about myself, because I was like, well, I'm no George Clooney, or I'm no Brad Pitt, so I'm like, I shouldn't be looking for Angelina Jolie or like a Beyonce type figure, So I thought about that. I'm like, I'm not really like the bee's knees in terms of looks, but I better look for like an equivalent. But at the same time, to get my act together, are you financially responsible? Are you fiscally responsible? You have a sense of independence. Are you independent? Do you have a decent job? Now, with this whole, again, maybe it's just people, a cost of living, a sense of like living and stuff like that. Maybe that's the case. But I say just, I don't know. I don't know what it's like. They say the happiness medium for the income you make is like $70K. So if you go over that, then your happiness level tapers off. Now, people say everybody's different, but that's like the average from what I've learned. So I'm like, I don't know. They say to take care of a child, what is it, 100,000 or 250,000? From like, to the born to the 18. So kids are expensive. So consider that as a person willing to have kids. And also consider, like, if you're a very agreeable man. This is something I'm currently working through myself. Like, okay, what type of woman is looking for an agreeable man? And again, like I said, it's good to have a balance. You should have a balance. You shouldn't be too you shouldn't be too disagreeable, but you shouldn't be too agreeable either, because it makes people step over you a lot. So I suggest you stop, care less. And I'm not saying you should be nice or nothing. It's okay to be nice, but just care less. Sometimes you care too much and it can be overburdensome. So care less. Be yourself. Be who you are in the element, in yourself. But sometimes people are so nice that they can't see that them being not nice is just you normaling out to other people. You think, oh, I'm being mean, I'm being cruel, and that's how, at least in my opinion, how some agreeable people are. They're like so nice, that them wanting something for themselves just one time might be like, yo, I'm being mean right now. I'm being selfish. It's like, maybe your family told you was being selfish because you was in a toxic family system. But no, you're not a selfish or cruel or mean if you want to do something for yourself. If you're too nice. Sometimes being too nice, you have a distorted personality. I mean, distorted, not personality, but distorted perception. That's what I meant. Or distorted perspective. So balancing yourself out, you might not even be a mean person. Sorry, it must be a spider or something. Or a fly. But yeah, learn to have a balance. And it's not as bad as you think. If you're too agreeable, being a little more disagreeable might make you a solid person, a more solid person. It's okay to be nice, but it's also okay to be like, no, I don't really want to do that. Actually, I want to go home. Actually, I don't want to wait on you for 50,000 minutes, seconds, and hours. Actually, I don't want to do this. Actually, I want to stick to what we were doing before. Actually, I want this. Actually, I want that. You know, sometimes it's okay to stick to your guns. And if somebody want to coerce you to do something else, you have to figure out, what do you want? What do you want? Do you want this? Actually, I'm cool. And I think this is something else I'm learning. Sorry, I wanted to bring just my personal advice into it. It's just like, maybe, because for me, I want an agreeable person. I'm an agreeable person. I want to be with an agreeable person, agreeable woman. And I get the dynamics. Most, you go for what you admire. And sometimes it's like, I have to see what are they looking for? What are agreeable women typically looking for? And sometimes I have to say, just because they're agreeable doesn't mean they're a good person. Let's just say that. Also, you have to see what their character is, because sometimes being an agreeable person doesn't mean you're necessarily kind. Sometimes you're so agreeable that you're just too scared to do something like cruel. Maybe that's it. And maybe when they get a chance to find a agreeable person, like agreeable man or agreeable woman, that person may unload on them. So, and this is one reason why I think why they have the nice guy syndrome, is just like these people gave like bad agreeable people a leg in, and that person enacted their selfish desires. And it's not so much selfish desires, but like overly selfish desires, like being overly inconsiderate, and that's, again, your disagreeable person could just be flat out like just a mean person. Now, mind you, it's not just that women date jerks or whatever. I don't know. I personally think all this stuff is a spectrum, and that you can climb up the spectrum if you apply yourself and you apply skills and stuff in your life, and you get help in different ways and respectively. But yeah, just I'm sorry, I was trying to get back to my point, but it's just like, if you are going to find somebody, be smart about it. If you're an agreeable person, you're just a very nice person. If you're a nice guy, and I mean truly a nice guy, I hate the aspect that we have to discern what a nice guy is versus just a person who who can be nice, who can be naive, who just likes to be nice, but they're just a bit naive about the situation, so they don't really know how to be nice in a smart or a competent way, and they don't know how to say no, versus a person who's like a bad person, but they're too passive to be an actual bad person. Sometimes it's just about being a good person and being a responsible person and being smart about your decisions. So I'm about to head off. I think that's just, be smart, and be smart about the person you're looking for, and be responsible for yourself and extend outward. I always say this from a agreeable person, a nice guy, or at least a person who tries to be a nice person, who's naturally nice and passive, but who tries to be responsible. If you're going to be a nice person, be selfish and extend outward, and by that I mean, do what you want to do and apply that outward. There's like, if you want to go to a restaurant, if you're with somebody and you want to hang out with them and stuff like that, and they agree to hang out with you, and you guys are on the same page, they like you like them, and that's what you want, think about what you want to do. This is like good dating, in my opinion. This is dating advice. If there's a place you always want to go to and a place you want to go there and take that person with you. There's plenty of places you want to go, plenty of things you want to do. Just think about it. Just really rummage to your mind and imagine this is a perspective, a place where you get your way sometimes. You get your way. Just imagine it at a time. You get your way in a healthy sense. You get your way. Okay, what would that look like? What would that look like? You know, because nice people are just nice. You know, nice people who are good people tend to be just very nice, and their intentions are good. And I mean good nice people. Good people who happen to be nice and who happen to be passive, who happen to be agreeable. Good people, they're just too passive to know what they want. Too agreeable to they agree with people. They're too nice. So know what you want and extend that to the other person. If you want to go check out the new restaurant for this, that, and the third, go there. See what it's like. Enjoy yourself. And if you want to be with somebody, be smart about it, and then bring them along. And be smart. Sometimes say no. No is a good way to say. You can be nice about it. You don't have to be mean about it. Sometimes we live in a society or in bad environments where you just can't say no. But when you can finally get out that environment, say no sometimes. If they're really a good person like that, that you're hanging around, a good friend, then they'll say no, and they won't work around your no. Your no is not a soft no. Your no is just a no. Like, no, I don't want to do that. Actually, I don't want to do that. So, and they will respect that because they respect your opinion. They respect your decisions. Sometimes it's okay to compromise. But for the most part, that's all I got. I'll just be repeating myself. Be smart. It's okay to be a nice person. Be a good person too.